Hi, I'm John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. In this episode, we're going to be looking at a report that was filed by CNN and a gentleman by the name of Nick Patton Walsh. This was filed, it says it was updated Tuesday, December 1st of 2020 at 3:39 a.m. So this was published either December 1st, 2020 or the last day of November, something like that. And this the title is the Wuhan Files. And the reason this is so pivotal is that this is the video clip where we learn about what was happening in Hubei province before the outbreak of COVID. And when you start doing baselining, which is looking at, well, what was happening before the outbreak of COVID? Was everything just fine? There was nothing going on whatsoever, and it was just sunny days, and all the flowers were blooming, and it was all good? Or was there something happening before COVID? And this story by Nick Patton Walsh that he calls the Wuhan Files may be the single most important story that CNN has ever done. I'll explain why in just a moment. Welcome to Hypothetically Speaking. I'm John Cullen. Let's get started.
Every time you come around, you know I can't say no. Every time the sun goes down, I let you take control. Feel the paradise before my world implodes.
So the first thing we probably need to do is to understand, why is this story so important? And it says, according to this, it says it's a 21-minute read. So we're going to be here for a little chunk of time going through this and breaking it down. But the reason this story is so important is the video, the 5-minute video that comes with the story from CNN. So this was from CNN World, or CNN International, and Nick Patton Walsh is the author, and this goes back to 2020. It's pivotal, and the reason why will become evident in a second. Let me play you the clip of the video that I've been using on X or Twitter for the last, since I found it, which was probably about a year and a half ago or a year ago. And I've used this clip a number of times because this is establishing what was happening in Hubei province before the outbreak of COVID. All right, so once we understand that, then we can have a better understanding of, and then along came this other virus, right? So let me play this video for you guys. Let me show you sort of where we were right before COVID. And this is the clip I've been using from the Nick Patton Walsh story. We're going to now watch the whole video. It's a 5-minute long video. But first I wanted to show you the clip I've been using. Many of you will recognize it if you follow me on X. And then I'll play the whole clip. We'll go to the story. We're going to read the story, and we'll play the whole video that they published. But this was sort of edited down to 2 minutes when I was only able to publish 2-minute videos. So let's watch this together.
Startlingly, these documents reveal there was an enormous spike in influenza cases in Hubei, right when studies have shown the very first known patients were infected with COVID-19. 20.
So it just said there was a huge spike in influenza cases. What? A huge spike in influenza cases when? When, Nick?
Startlingly, these documents reveal there was an enormous spike in influenza cases in Hubei, right when studies have shown the very first known patients were infected with COVID-19. 20 times the number of flu cases.
All right, on the screen, it says 2,096% rise in cases. That's what I see on the screen over his shoulder. 2,096%. So rounding that up to 2,100% is not that big a rounding thing, right? So we're going to round this up to 2,100%. That means it's 21 times more than the year before. And the week this is happening is December 2nd through December 8th of 2019. All right, so that's early December. So in early December, the place where we find Wuhan is in the midst of an outbreak of influenza with 21 times more cases. That means if there were 50,000 cases last year, which would be 2018, the year prior to this, if there were 50,000 cases in 2018, it would mean that there's 1,050,000 cases in 2019. So to go from 50,000 to 1,050,000, that might overwhelm the hospital system, right? Now, if there had been 100,000 cases in 2018, this would mean that there would be 2.1 million cases instead of 100,000. All right, 100,000 people, kind of fit in the Rose Bowl if you pack them all in and you let them walk around on the field and stuff. But 2.1 million people? That's game changing. So if we're talking about going from 50,000 to 1,050,000 or 100,000 to 2.1 million, these are remarkably huge, dramatic differences. And they're documenting it. And that's why we're going to dig into this story. So this is sort of the little tidbit that I've been using on X to kind of make the point that there was something happening already before COVID showed up. And it was pretty dramatic. In fact, it's kind of historic. If any of you who are watching this are epidemiologists, and you recall an outbreak of influenza that was 25 times worse, please make note of that and put it in the comments section here. 21 times worse than the year before, year over year. That seems historic to me. All right, let's watch this clip and then we'll go to the bigger section.
To the same week the year before. Experts said it could have flooded the hospital system with patients sick from flu-like symptoms. But they show flu patients were regularly screened, and many did not have a known flu virus strain. The documents also show the flu outbreak was biggest that first week in December, not in Wuhan, but in 2 other cities nearby in Hubei. All valuable information in the hunt for where the disease came from.
That was my new tagline for CNN, remember when we didn't suck. So this may be the most important story these guys have ever done. Because it's kind of one of the 3 legs of the stool of figuring out what was really going on during this whole COVID debacle. What was it really SARS-CoV-2? Was it something else? So it kind of takes us back to the story. And the story is about this outbreak. And let's go to that. Let me switch over back to the browser and let's go through the story together. And right now I am at cnnedition.cnn.com 2020/1130 Asia Wuhan-China COVID international /index.html. So this is a live website that I'm on right now. I also have a link to the website from archive.org because I wasn't able to get the video to play on the CNN site. So at the CNN site right now, the video won't play. So I had to go to archive.org to do that. All right, let's take a look at the story from Nick Patton Walsh and see what he has to say. Now, what's interesting about this, because I've gone through this already, is the story about the outbreak of influenza is like 2/3 of the way in here. You talk about burying the lead. It's way deep in here. So there's going to be a whole lot of hand waving and pearl clutching and oh my goodness, and this wasn't this and this was that. And I don't know that a whole lot of this is going to matter until we get to the part about the influenza outbreak. So I'm just kind of giving you guys a heads up. It's about 2/3 of the way into this. The Wuhan Files by Nick Patton Walsh. London. A group of frontline medical workers, likely exhausted, right out of the gate, likely exhausted, stand huddled together on a video conference call as China's most powerful man raises his hand in greeting. It is February 10th in Beijing, and President Xi Jinping, who for weeks has been absent from public view, is addressing hospital staff in the city of Wuhan as they battle to contain the spread of a still officially unnamed novel coronavirus. Now, it should say virus, because if we don't know what it is, how do we know it's a coronavirus? But it says coronavirus. But it was officially unnamed, right? Okay. Spread of a still officially unnamed novel coronavirus. From a secure room about 1,200 kilometers, 745 miles from the epicenter, Xi expressed his condolences to those who have died in the outbreak. He urged greater public communication, as around the world, concerns mounted about the potential threat posed by the new disease. All right, now, when you just watch that video clip, this should be giving you some cognitive dissonance already. It's like, wait a second. Potential threat of a new disease. You just told us that there was this major influenza outbreak in Hubei, Wuhan, in the 3 big cities in Hubei. There's this massive outbreak. And then all of a sudden, Peter Daszak, out of the blue, notifies ProMed and says, hey guys, you know about this outbreak going on in Wuhan? And he's worried about a novel virus. That this is December 30th. Nobody's died from SARS-CoV-2. This note that he's posting here is talking about how he was using WeChat to communicate with ProMed about the outbreak. But it's December 30th. COVID wasn't discovered until January 9th. And the first guy didn't die until January 11th. So why would you be concerned on December 30th? And why would you be concerned in the sea of illness that we just saw? If you have a 2,100% increase year over year in influenza cases, why would you all of a sudden think anybody's got something novel unless their presentation was significantly different? Is it hemorrhagic? Is there blood coming out of their nose, coming out of their ears, coming out of their eyes? I mean, what was the presentation? In what way was it significantly different from this influenza outbreak? Was it? Why was Peter Daszak so concerned about something new in the midst of what we just watched? That's why the baseline is so important. In other words, Peter Daszak expressing concern, if everything is fine, and nothing is happening, okay, maybe we should pay attention. But that's not what was happening. We just saw a second ago, there's an outbreak underway in Hubei. 2,100% increase in cases. It's overwhelming the hospital system. And Peter Daszak goes, yeah, but what does this guy have? Based on what? What was significantly different about the presentation that they said, well, this can't be this influenza thing. This has to be something else. We know from the metagenomic testing that was done that the first patients had H7N9, and they had more of it than SARS-CoV-2. So that's why the baseline is so important. That's why understanding what was happening in advance is so important. So CNN here is kind of playing both sides of the street with the story. They're kind of telling you the narrative part, but I guess they're going to let the cat out of the bag when they get to the influenza part, because they let the cat out of the bag. But all this stuff up front, this is kind of narrative selling type stuff to me, so just be wary. He urged greater public communication as around the world concerns mounted about the potential threat posed by the new disease. I'd be more worried about the other disease, the one that's got the 2,100% increase in cases. That would be the one that's got me worried. The same day, Chinese authorities reported 2,478 new confirmed cases, raising the total global number to more than 40,000, with fewer than 400 cases occurring outside of mainland China. So 36,000 of these cases are in Wuhan. Okay. Yet, CNN can now reveal how official documents circulated internally show that this was only part of the picture. All right, so again, now the story they're going to tell here is kind of the red herring. This part is going to be kind of so what? Okay. In a report marked internal document, please keep confidential, local health authorities in the province of Hubei, where the virus was first detected, list a total of 5,918 newly detected cases as of on February 10th. More than double the official public number of confirmed cases. All right, so whether it's 3,000 or 6,000 is somewhat immaterial. Breaking down the total into a variety of subcategories, this larger figure was never fully revealed at the time. Pearl clutching. As China's accounting system seemed, in the tumult of the early weeks of the pandemic, to downplay the severity of the outbreak. Yeah, because they were busy looking at this other virus that they got 2,100% increase in cases. That's what they were concerned with. That's why the hospital system was overwhelmed. Why would they be worried about this thing Peter Daszak is worried about? They're like, what are you worried about? Why are you worried about this? We got this problem over here. We got 2,100% more cases than last year. And you're worried about this other virus? What new virus are you even talking about? And why are these people different from all these other people? Why did you even suspect they had a new virus? The previously undisclosed, let me bring you guys back to this. Previously undisclosed figure is among a string of revelations contained within 117 pages of leaked documents from the Hubei Provincial Center for Disease Control and Prevention, shared with and verified by CNN. Taken together, the documents amount to the most significant leak from inside China since the beginning of the pandemic, and provide the first clear window into what local authorities knew internally and when. All right, so that sounds kind of, like maybe they had, somebody who passed them some documents. It sounds pretty legit. The Chinese government has steadfastly rejected accusations made by the United States and other Western governments that it deliberately concealed information relating to the virus. maintaining it's been up front since the beginning of the outbreak. Well, we know from the WHO that SARS-CoV-2 was first identified January 9th. The first guy died 2 days later, January 11th. And they sent us the genetic sequence. When the first guy died, there were 41 cases, one dead guy, and China shared the genetic sequence. So all this stuff with Mike Pompeo saying China's got to be up front, and China's got to share this, and China's has this obligation. They sent the genetic sequence the second day after they discovered it. One guy's died, and that guy had H7N9. Whole bunch of these people had H7N9. And they had SARS-CoV-2. They probably had herpes too. They probably had zoster virus too. But they had H7N9. All right. So China saying we're not deliberately concealing anything is kind of true. I mean, the record shows they provided the genetic sequence of this SARS-CoV-2 virus 2 days after they said, hey, yeah, no, this is something new. We haven't seen this before. So China wasn't lying. Maintaining it's been up front since the beginning of the outbreak. However, though the documents provide no evidence of a deliberate attempt to obfuscate findings, they do reveal numerous inconsistencies in what authorities believe to be happening and what was revealed to the public. Hubei province, here we go. Undisclosed early December influenza. Internal documents obtained by CNN revealed a large and previously undisclosed outbreak of influenza in early December in Hubei province. I mean, that gives me goosebumps. That's it. That's the outbreak. This is why Michael Callahan is deployed to Hubei province. It looks like he got the job done, in fact, because he was there earlier. Internal documents obtained by CNN revealed a large and previously undisclosed outbreak of influenza in early December in Hubei province. The outbreak was felt most severely in Yichang and Jianing. Wuhan, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, was the third worst hit. But that's where the lab is. So that's why Wuhan is in the press. Wuhan has to be, because that's where the lab is. Otherwise, the Jon Stewart chocolate factory story doesn't come together. You have to have the outbreak near the chocolate factory. Right? So otherwise, people don't think they're figuring something out. And then they deny, and say, no, it came from the wet market. And Jon Stewart says, come on, dude, there's a chocolate factory right over here. Come on. So that's how it all comes together. This is what I mean. Langley's really good. Really good. All right, so this, a couple maps, so you guys get to see where Hubei is, where is Yichang, where is Wuhan, where is Jianing, and where is Hubei in the grand scheme of China. Okay? So there we go. The documents, which cover an incomplete period between October 2019 and April this year, meaning April 2020, reveal what appears to be an inflexible healthcare system, judgment, constrained by top-down bureaucracy and rigid procedures. Somebody grew up in a judgmental household that were ill-equipped to deal with the emerging crisis. Well, yeah, if you go from 50,000 cases to 1,050,000 cases, who's well-equipped to deal with that? Why would anybody expect to be well-equipped to deal with a 21-fold increase in cases? Again, so I'm afraid whoever, Nick Patton Walsh or whoever helped him write this is a bit judgmental. At several critical moments in the early phase of the pandemic, the documents show evidence of clear missteps and point to a pattern of institutional failings, according to whom. If Hong Kong didn't have 10 dead, and Shanghai didn't have 10 dead, and Beijing didn't have 10 dead, and China didn't have 5,000 dead, maybe Mr. Nick Patwell shouldn't be throwing stones. One of the more striking data points concerns the slowness with which local COVID-19 patients were diagnosed, because they were in the middle of this other outbreak. Even as authorities in Hubei presented their handling of the initial outbreak to the public as efficient and transparent, the documents show that local health officials were reliant on flawed testing and reporting mechanisms. It doesn't sound that different from New York. A report in the documents from early March says the average time between the onset of symptoms to confirmed diagnosis was 23.3 days, which experts have told CNN would have significantly hampered steps to both monitor and combat the disease. So again, what we're seeing here is just a bunch of judgmental calls. Somebody's playing Monday morning quarterback, looking at this stuff and saying, oh my, a lot of pearl clutching going on here. China has staunchly defended its handling of the outbreak. In a news conference on June 7th, China's State Council released a white paper saying the Chinese government had always published information related to the epidemic in a timely, open, and transparent fashion. And I agree. If they published the genetic sequence 2 days after they discovered it, how much earlier do you want it? When nobody's dead? If there's nobody dead, why do you want it? Why would you need it if it doesn't kill people? Once it kills a guy, they posted the sequence that day, same day. So China wasn't lying. Dr. Fauci was lying. The media was lying to you guys about what was actually happening. China wasn't lying. China was in the midst of a bird flu outbreak. And all of a sudden this other virus shows up and they're like, we got another problem. The other virus is killing 40% of the people who get it. This one is not. So what they're doing is triage. What they're doing is prioritization. If you have a virus that kills 31 to 40% of the people who get it, and then you have another virus that kills 1% of the people who get it, which one are you more worried about? Which one are you focusing on more? While making an all-out effort to contain the virus, China has also acted with a keen sense of responsibility to humanity, its people, posterity, and the international community. It has provided information on COVID-19 in a thoroughly professional and efficient way. It has released authoritative and detailed information as early as possible on a regular basis, thus effectively responding to public concern and building public consensus, says the white paper. And again, I agree. We know everything we need to know about the virus from day one from them. And we know about the other virus from them. They already had H7N9 vaccines when this thing showed up. CNN has reached out to China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Health Commission, as well as Hubei's Health Commission, which oversees the provincial CDC, for comment on the findings disclosed in the documents, but received no response. Health experts said the documents laid bare why what China knew in the early months mattered. Okay, I tend to agree with that. Medical personnel work in the intensive care unit at Wuhan Hospital on February 24th. It was clear they did make mistakes, and not just mistakes that happen when you're dealing with a novel virus, also bureaucratic and politically motivated errors in how they handled it, said Yang Zhonghuang, a senior fellow for global health at the Council on Foreign Relations, who has written extensively on public health in China. And again, right there, why is Yan Zhonghuang not telling you Look, these guys were in the midst of a wicked bird flu outbreak. Cut them a break, for God's sakes. You know, they had a 2,100% increase in cases, 21 times, just in December. And then this new virus shows up. Why isn't Yang Huang explaining this? Most likely because Yang Huang, the senior fellow for global health at the Council for Foreign Relations, really works for Langley. That's why. Written exclusively on public health in China. Okay. And he doesn't know about the bird flu outbreak. Doesn't know about the Huangpu River incident with the pigs. All right. So this is all nonsense. You can never guarantee 100% transparency. It's not just about any intentional cover-up. You're just also constrained by technology and other issues with a novel virus. Keep saying novel. They told these guys, keep saying novel virus again and again. But even if they had been 100% transparent, that would not stop the Trump administration downplaying the seriousness of it. It would probably not have stopped this developing into a pandemic. I mean, this is all nonsense. This is all red herring nonsense. This has nothing to do with what's actually happening. Tuesday, December 1st, marks 1 year since the first known patient showed symptoms of the disease in the Hubei provincial capital of Wuhan, according to a key study in the Lancet Medical Journal. So my question is, how did this present differently from the 2,100% increase that we saw the same week? It says Tuesday, December 1st. That's that first week in December. That's the week we had the 2,100% increase in cases. And the first known patient was that week with this other virus. Who was it that said, no, that can't be what these million other people have? This is probably something different. Based on what? What was the difference in presentation of the COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 versus this influenza outbreak with the 2,100% increase in case? What was the difference? How were these symptoms in the first known patient different? At the same time that the virus is believed to have first emerged, the documents show another health crisis was unfolding. God bless CNN. Hubei was dealing with a significant influenza outbreak. It caused cases to rise 20 times. 2,096% is 21 times. The level recorded the previous year, the documents show, placing enormous levels of additional stress on an already stretched healthcare system. I mean, this is kind of the smoking gun, folks. There's an outbreak of influenza already happening. And all of a sudden, Peter Daszak shows up and does one of these and says, no, I think one of these million people has a different virus. What? Why? Placing enormous levels of additional stress on an already stretched healthcare system. The influenza epidemic, as officials noted in the document, was not only present in Wuhan in December, but was greatest in the neighboring cities of Yichang and Jianing. It remains unclear what impact or connection the influenza spike had on the COVID-19 outbreak. It's like, what? Yeah, it's like, it's almost like such a strange, what impact it had on the COVID outbreak didn't have an impact on the COVID outbreak. The COVID outbreak is to cover up this other outbreak, ding dong. And while there is no suggestion in the documents the two parallel crises are linked, information regarding the magnitude of Hubei's influenza spike has still yet to be made public. That's odd, right? Why would they not want to share that? The leaked revelations come as pressure builds from the U.S. and the European Union on China to fully cooperate with a World Health Organization inquiry into the origins of the virus that has spread to every corner of the globe, infecting more than 60 million people and killing 1.46 million. Okay, so this is December of 2020, and the death count is at 1.46 million. This will end up at 7 million people globally. All right, let's continue. So far, access for international experts to hospital media records and raw data in Hubei has been limited, with the WHO saying last week they had reassurances from our Chinese government colleagues that a trip to the field would be granted as part of their investigations. The files were presented to CNN by a whistleblower who requested anonymity. They said they worked inside the Chinese healthcare system, were a patriot motivated to expose a truth that had been censored, and honor colleagues who had also spoken out. It is unclear how the documents were obtained or why specific papers were selected. The documents have been verified by 6 independent experts who examined the veracity of their content on behalf of CNN. One expert, with close ties to China, reported seeing some of the reports during confidential research earlier this year. A European security official with knowledge of Chinese internal documents and procedures also confirmed to CNN that the files were genuine. Metadata from the files, seen by CNN, contains the names of serving CDC officials as modifiers and authors. The metadata creation dates align with the content of the documents. Digital forensic analysis was also performed to test their computer code against their purported origins. Sarah Morris from the Digital Forensic Unit at Britain's Cranfield University said there was no evidence of the data had been tampered with or was misleading. She added the older files looked like they had been used repeatedly over a long period of time. It's almost like a mini file system, she said. So it's got lots of room for deleted stuff, for old things. That's a really good sign of authenticity. World got more optimistic data than reality. The documents show a wide range of data on 2 specific days, February 10th and March 7th, that is at odds with what officials said publicly at the time. This discrepancy was likely due to a combination of a highly dysfunctional reporting system. Again, we're getting super judgmental here. Likely due to a combination of highly dysfunctional. What if it was moderately dysfunctional? What if it was somewhat? What if it was just somewhat dysfunctional reporting system? The fact that it's likely due means you're guessing. So this is kind of a waste of time. The documents show the full extent of what officials knew, but chose not to spell it to the public. February 10th, China reported 2,478 new cases. The documents show they actually had 6,000 cases. Who cares? Confirmed cases, clinically diagnosed cases, suspected cases. Ooh, naughty, naughty. I feel like somebody's ratting somebody out in class. Only 2/3 of the new cases were reported. They had this many. The document said they had that many. Oh, my. Pearl clutching going on. This is not that important, but it's taking up space. And we got a lot of names here. William Schaffner, professor of infectious diseases at Vanderbilt University, said the Chinese approach was conservative. The data would have been presented in a different way had U.S. epidemiologists been there to assist. He wants to go to China. He said Chinese officials seemed actually to minimize the impact of the epidemic at any moment in time. Well, yeah, it's got a case fatality rate of 1%, and they're in the midst of another outbreak with a case fatality rate of 40%. So, yes, they're minimizing yes. That makes sense. If you've got 2 viruses and one kills 1% of the people who get it, and the other kills 40% of the people who get it, you would minimize the impact of the one that kills 1%. So to include patients who were suspected of having the infection obviously would have expanded the size of the outbreak, would have given, I think, a truer appreciation. He has no idea about the outbreak of the influenza. That's obvious. It's ridiculous. Protocols for coronavirus diagnosis, published by China's National Health Commission in late January, told doctors to label a case suspected if a patient had contact history with known cases and a fever and pneumonia symptoms, and to elevate the case to clinically diagnosed if those symptoms were confirmed by an X-ray or CT scan. A case would only be confirmed if a polymerase chain react PCR or genetic sequencing test came back positive. That's the genetic sequencing test is the metagenomic test. Andrew Murtha, director of the China Studies Program at Johns Hopkins University, said officials might have been motivated to lowball numbers to disguise underfunding and preparedness issues in local healthcare bodies like the provincial CDC. But again, he's guessing. Andrew Murtha might have been motivated. He's guessing. It's like, it might not have been. This is totally supposition. This is worthless. According to Murtha, the documents which he reviewed and considered authentic seemed to be organized so as to allow senior officials to paint whatever picture they wished. Medical workers in full protective clothing in Wuhan, January 25th. You are giving them all the options there without putting somebody in an explicitly embarrassing position, giving them both the anvil or the life raft to then choose from. Chinese officials did soon improve the reporting system, placing the clinically diagnosed cases into the confirmed category by mid-February. Top health and provincial officials in Hubei were also removed from their positions at the time, who would have been ultimately responsible for the reporting. Furthermore, wider and improved testing meant suspected cases could be clarified quicker and featured less in reporting. Separately, China's diagnostic criteria have been criticized by health experts for their continued public decision to not count asymptomatic cases. So in China, if you don't show symptoms, they don't consider you sick. In America, if you test positive but have no symptoms, they consider you sick. Okay. Death tolls listed in the documents reveal the starkest discrepancies. On March 7th, the total death toll in Hubei since the beginning of the outbreak stood at 2,986. But in the internal report, it's listed as 3,456. Pearl clutching time, including 2,675 confirmed deaths, 647 clinically diagnosed deaths, and 126 suspected case deaths. Dolly Yang, who has extensively studied the outbreak's origins, said that in February numbers still mattered because of global perceptions. They were still hoping it was like 2003, and like severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS would be eventually contained and everything would go back to normal, added Yang, who is a professor of political science at the University of Chicago. He pointed to the February 7th call between Presidents Trump and Xi. I think that's also the wishful impression that Trump got, that this is going to disappear. The documents, however, are by no means clear-cut. On 2 occasions, the public death numbers are narrowly overreported, with the internal figures indicating single-digit discrepancies of 5 and 1, respectively. Not even worth mentioning. On other occasions, the data provides glimpses of new information, but without vital context. Even though China has never revealed the total number of COVID-19 cases in 2019, it was discovered January 9th, a graph in one document appears to suggest a much higher number had been detected. In the bottom left-hand column of the graph marked 2019, the number of confirmed cases and clinically diagnosed cases appears to reach around 200 altogether. To date, the clearest indication of how many cases were detected in 2019 is the 44 cases of pneumonia of unknown etiology. All right, so we had, in 2019, 44 cases. Chinese reported to the WHO for the period of the pandemic up to January 3rd. January 9th, they brought that number back down to 41 cases. Okay. Now we're going to talk about testing. But testing's not important. What we really want to talk about, early warning system was hampered. Yeah. They didn't have enough money. Okay, they didn't have enough money. Money was a problem. Infectious disease surveillance was a problem. They didn't have enough money. Playing a leading role. A lumbering and unresponsive IT network. So the computer systems are lousy. Okay, so that's why. And then we finally get to the punchline. According to Huang, massively invested in disease control and prevention after the 2003 SARS outbreak. A large outbreak of flu in Hubei. The documents also reveal a previously undisclosed 20-fold spike in influenza cases recorded in 1 week in early December in Hubei province. All right, so let's hold here, and now I want to go to the video. So this is the full video. This is the video from which I made that 2-minute clip. And I think it's important that we watch this whole thing to put everything in perspective. I was not able to get this to run at the CNN site. I had to go to archive.org. So let's see what we can get from this video from CNN. And this is from the Wuhan files.
An unprecedented leak of internal Chinese documents to CNN reveals for the first time what China knew in the opening weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic, but did not tell the world. A whistleblower who said they worked inside the Chinese healthcare system shared the documents with CNN online, which show a chaotic local response from the start.
This lack of transparency sort of also contributed to the crisis.
Seeing information in black and white was very revealing and instructive.
CNN has verified them with half a dozen experts, a European security official, and using complex digital forensic analysis looking at their source code. The documents provide a number of key revelations about the province of Hubei, home to the epicenter city of Wuhan. Firstly, some of the death tolls were off. The worst day in these reports is February the 17th, where these say 196 people who were confirmed cases died. But that day, they only announced 93. China was also circulating internally bigger, more detailed totals for new cases in Hubei. For one day in February, recording internally nearly 6,000 new cases. Some diagnosed by tests, others clinically by doctors, and some suspected because of symptoms and contacts, but all pretty serious. Yet publicly that day, China reported nationwide about 2,500 new confirmed cases. The rest were downplayed in an ongoing tally of suspected cases. That meant patients that doctors had diagnosed as being seriously ill sounded like they were in doubt. They did later improve the criteria.
If China had been more transparent and also more aggressive in responding, clearly that would have had an impact on how much the virus spread in Wuhan, in Hubei, in China, and perhaps to the rest of the world as well.
Strikingly, the documents reveal one possible reason behind the discrepancy in the numbers. A report from early March says it took a staggering 23 days on average from when someone showed COVID-19 symptoms to when they got a confirmed diagnosis. That's 3 weeks to officially catch each case.
This information seems to be very surprising to me, because normally it would take just a couple of days.
You're making policy today based on information that already is 3 weeks old.
Perhaps the most remarkable revelation concerns early December, the moment when COVID-19 first emerged in China. Startlingly, these documents reveal there was an enormous spike in influenza cases in Hubei, right when studies have shown the very first known patients were infected with COVID-19. 20 times the number of flu cases compared to the same week the year before. Experts said it could have flooded the hospital system with patients sick from flu-like symptoms, making it harder to spot the first cases of COVID-19. The documents don't link the outbreak to coronavirus's origins directly, but they show flu patients were regularly screened, and many did not have a known flu virus strain, leaving open the possibility they were sick with COVID-19.
The spike in Wuhan was very unusual, right, compared to previous years. So that would raise a red flag.
It was very, very sizable. It's clear that the Chinese virologists can make precise diagnoses of influenza, but in retrospect, you have to wonder, was there some COVID in there masquerading as influenza?
The documents also show the flu outbreak was biggest that first week in December, not in Wuhan, but in 2 other cities nearby in Hubei. All valuable information in the hunt for where the disease came from. Chinese officials have said the outbreak began here, the Huanan seafood market in Wuhan in mid-December, and despite Western accusations that it has limited its cooperation with the WHO investigation into the virus's origins, China has insisted it has been as transparent as possible over the coronavirus. For some time now, in order to shift the blame, she said, some US politicians have constantly used the pandemic and other issues as a pretext to smear and demonize China and sow lies and misinformation about China. This will, of course, seriously mislead citizens of the United States and some other Western countries' understanding of the truth of China's fight against the epidemic. China's foreign ministry and health officials in Beijing and Wuhan have not responded to our requests for comment. This disease has killed nearly 1.5 million people, about a fifth of known deaths in America. These documents a rare, clear and open window into what China knew all along, trying to appear in control, while a local outbreak turned into a global pandemic.
Interesting. All right, let's continue with the large outbreak of flu in Hubei. This is really the part of the article that I've been wanting to get to. And we're going to continue with this portion with my patrons. Without my patrons, I wouldn't be able to do this. They make this work possible. I don't have any sponsors. I don't do any ads during the show. As you guys see, I don't sell anything. I don't sell blankets or pillows or anything. So without my patrons, I wouldn't be able to do this type of investigative journalism. We're going to be back in just a moment. For those of you who support me on Patreon and Subscribe Star, the patron-only portion of the show is already up and ready to go. So hop on over there and we will pick back up with this large outbreak of flu in Hubei from the CNN story, The Wuhan Files by Nick Patton Walsh. I'm John Cullen. Thanks for joining, Hypothetically Speaking.